Morning everybody, welcome to today, which is day 2 of Tomes of Beauty event. It's such a privilege to be here. My name's Caroline Larracy and I am Chief Executive of the National Hair and Beauty Federation. So if you didn't know what the National Hair and Beauty Federation is, we are the largest trade organisation for the hair and beauty sector. So we always say we're the umbrella organisation that supports hair, beauty and barbering businesses and aesthetic clinics across the board. We provide business support so that hair and beauty practitioners can do what they do best, which is work on the shop floor. So today, on my panel today, I have got 3 absolutely fantastic guests. So if I want to just pass over, please, I'd just like you to introduce yourself and just give everybody a little bit of background on you.
Managing Director and founder of Qualia Skin Specialist and Qualia Academy. I deal with aesthetics for individuals that have problematic skin and especially ethnic minority skin too. I also have a business background. I have a Master's in Business Administration and most importantly I'm one of the board members for the National Hair and Beauty Federation. And that's myself.
Perfect.
No, thank you very much. Yes, I'm Matthew Hutchison. I'm one of the Senior Employment Law Advisors at WorkNest. We work closely with the NHBF and give them employment law and HR and health and safety support through the NHBF legal advice line. What we do is your members will phone us up, email us and get employment law and HR advice to make sure that you're compliant and avoiding as much risk as you possibly can.
Hello, my name is Jo Lancaster and I am the Quality and Standards Manager for Beauty Therapy and Aesthetics for the National Hair and Beauty Federation. A background is very much education with teaching beauty therapy, holistics, well-being and aesthetics as well to degree level. And I'm really thrilled to be here today to represent the National Hair and Beauty Federation.
So the topic of today's panel is really what support can we provide for business owners out there. So I've got a number of questions that I'm going to answer and we're going to speak to the panel about. So I think, kick off. So for me, the first question we've got, and let me put my glasses on because I'm blind as a bat. When members pick up a phone and call the NHBF, what kind of support are they likely to receive? So first of all, I can start off on that one because there's a whole range of support. And I always say to people, please come on our website, www.nhbf.co.uk, have a look and browse the materials. We have loads and tools and resources that actually are supportive of a whole raft of salon owners and for all different business types, whether you're a solo member or you've got a business or you've actually got a franchise. But one of the big things that we do and support our members is our HR support. So I think that's over to you if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So when one of the members phone the NHBF advisory service, they'll get a dedicated team of advisors who have been advising hair and beauty businesses for a very long time. And what we do is we ask questions specifically about your business. We find out what's the issues are with you and what's affecting you, and then we will give you tailored advice based on those particular queries. So we'll talk through the issues, we'll provide you letters, give you guidance. So when you come to actually do do whatever action you need to do, you can be confident that you've been given the right advice, you know that you're legally compliant, and you've got somebody there to support you all the way through the process.
I think for me, it's that tailored, advice, isn't it? And when you go online and you look at various different forums and different chat groups and everything like that, and there's generic, HR contracts and stuff like that, but it's about, you can't just buy off the peg a contract and think that's going to actually cover you and be right for your business.
Absolutely, and you've got to be able to have that conversation with your advisor, and they can say, that might be the right course of action in this particular scenario, but the way that you run your business, the way you'd like to get to your end goal, let's just go through this channel. And we'll often give you a range of options on various degrees of risk and how commercial somebody wants to be. And if you're prepared to take a little bit more risk, that's fine, and we'll support you on that. But if you want to take a more best practice approach, which we would generally recommend that you do, we can talk you through that and have that. But it's always on the business to make the decision. We'll just give you the options. We'll give you the different pathways, and then it's up to the business owner, as it should be, to make those decisions. We never tell you what to do.
Absolutely, and I think the biggest thing for me is, for our sector in particular, we're not a cookie cutter sector. We're not, every business is not the same. They're absolutely different, and a hairdressing business is completely different to a barber's, to a beauty business, it's different to an aesthetic business, and it's about getting that, tailored advice. But also, the different business models are different. We've got solo members on there, we've got groups, we've got franchisers, we've got, a single salon. So there's a whole raft of the various different things. And what's happening obviously now is a lot more people are doing hybrid models of employment, and that you've got to be very, very careful on what you're actually doing and getting the right advice to actually facilitate that model.
Absolutely, yes. We're going specifically about the hybrid model. It is the hot topic at the moment, and a lot of people are trying to move in that direction. And it can be a very good way of running a business, but you have to accept, if you go through that process, you are having to give up a lot by going into that process. If you run a business and you have employees, you have that control. You can dictate how they do that work. If you go to either a hybrid or a self-employed model, you are giving that control and the way that people do the work to the people who you are taking on as self-employed contractors, and you lose that. So it might be a very good way of doing it, but just make sure that you understand that you are going to have to change your business model. You're going to have to follow a process to get there. If you think you're going to be able to change your business model into hybrid overnight, you've probably done it wrong. And you need to make sure you do the redundancies right. So phone the advice line, speak it through with your advisor, and then they will be able to talk you through the process and make sure that you're doing it in compliance with HR and employment law practices. It can't just be done overnight, and you need to recognise that.
Absolutely, that's vital. I mean, I've seen so many posts online where people have gone, I've just decided to make all my staff self-employed, and it's like, no, you can't do that. They're employed members of staff. You have to go through a redundancy process. That's the key thing as part of that. And I think that's where it's a sort of a little bit of a glitch, that you think it's an easy option, but as you rightly said, it's about losing the USP, isn't it, in the salon? As soon as you get somebody that's self-employed in a salon, they're their own business in your salon, and they can put all their own stamp on there.
Yeah, and you might still have your name on the door.
Yeah.
But they're the ones who have to take responsibility for their work. And certainly if you go in a hybrid model, you will have some self-employed people and some employed people, and you've got to treat them differently. As soon as you start treating the self-employed people the same as you do the employed, that's when you get into the difficulties of disguised employment, because you're treating them as if they were employees. And you might say, oh, well, they're self-employed. But if there was ever a dispute, their representative might say, well, actually, in reality, I think you're being treated as an employee. I think you can claim redundancy payments. I think you can claim unfair dismissal. So the hybrid model is fine if you get it right. But it is very difficult to get right, because you have to treat these two groups of people
and it's
differently.
exactly the same for our solo members. Our solo members think it's absolutely great to be self-employed, but then you've got to think that you're actually paying for everything yourself, because you're a self-contained business. So there is, pitfalls and various different things on being employed and self-employed, moving forward. And I'm sure we're going to pick up on this a little bit later. But also what I wanted to touch on as well is, the NHBF provide loads and loads of different resources for our members. But one of the big key things that we've launched recently is our Businesses in a Box. So, Kirsty, you want to tell us about how you've seen our Business in a Box and your thoughts?
So with regards to the Business in a Box, I think it's very useful, because one of the common things that can occur when people have salons, and it's not a given that it's every salon, is the health and safety element side of things can be something that's kind of almost put to the forefront at first, and then as things go by and days get a little bit more difficult and there's more things to contest with, it can kind of be put to the side. Whereas the Business in a Box gives you the opportunity to keep on top of that. Everything that's new, any kind of compliance requirements, that's brought through, it's updated, it's something that you can utilise. It's almost like having your own health and safety specialist when it comes down to health and safety. So it's very, very useful when it comes down to running a salon, or even being a self-employed individual that's a practitioner.
I mean, Kirsty, you're like me, you're a big champion of education and
Yes.
training, and to me that's one of the key things for our sector is whenever you're in business and you're actually working on the shop floor, it's about keeping yourself up to date, keeping up on the latest information and resources and stuff like that. And the health and safety business in a box is what we call prime authority assured, which means what local authorities have checked all the documents, so you don't going to ever get one of those advisors coming into your salon and saying actually you're not health and safety compliant with the local authority, because it actually covers all the legislation and all these things that you actually need. And what is an added bonus in part of that is, you know, a nice little sticker that you can put in your window. So if that nice little environmental health officer comes past your salon and actually sees assured health and safety, they know that you're actually working to the standards that are set by government, which is an absolute tick box for our members going forward. But one of the things we actually have got, which we're just under development, which Joe's going to tell us about now, and this is just literally hot off the press, is, over to you, Joe.
So it's a sector-specific business in the box for the aesthetics sector. So it'll complement the health and safety business in the box that we already have, but it's going to be specific in having all the tools and the compliance needed to practice aesthetics within your business. So the consultation paperwork that's required, which can be adapted to your own business with your own logo. It can be used digitally. It can be printed off as well if you prefer that sort of more manual approach. It's got all the guidance in terms of what's needed with an aesthetic consultation to be compliant in terms of any up-and-coming legislation or regulation, and it's really quite it's there for both medical and non-medical practitioners as well, and it will be very useful in trying to sort of stay compliant and also to ensure that you've got all the tools that are required for a team of staff or even if you are practicing on your own. So that will be coming very shortly, and again it will be been assured by the primary authority as well, so you can rest assured that it will be you're safe and you'll be within any guidelines that are required to practice.
Thank you, Joe. And I think for me, aesthetics, again, Kirsty, it's a hot topic of conversation, isn't it? When's any legislation going to be coming out? What's that legislation going to be? I mean, you as a business owner, it must affect yourself.
Yeah, so currently at the moment, dependent on which local authority you're under, which council you're under, you will have the environmental health that may come in, and they will do the tattooing bylaws as a bog standard for you to be able to do aesthetics practice. I know in London it's prevalent that when you do laser, you also have the the environmental officers coming in too. So you have to have a licence over in London. So it depends on which area you live in as to whether you are going to have that local governance. Having something like the business in a box will get everybody ready. It'll get everybody up to a standard where if that legislation does come in, you're prepared for it, and forearmed is forewarned. Puts you in a really good position, a strong position.
Because the other thing with the aesthetics in the box is there are protocols as well. So there's a standard protocol for all the level 4 and level 5 standard procedures, which again can be slightly modified to be in line with your manufacturer's instructions as well. So a really good tool to ensure that you've got standardisation within your clinics as well.
And if you want to have a look at the business in a box, just whip over to our stand. We're just down the back there. We've got a copy of the business in a box, so you can have a look through and look at some of the tools and resources. For me, we're all about providing solutions. When I first introduced the National Hair and Beauty Federation and what we actually do, we're there to provide business support there. We're there to provide the solutions so it makes your life easier. So that stuff like the businesses in the box and the aesthetic toolkits and all the stuff like that is just there so that you can get on with doing what you do well, which is, working on the shop floor and going forward. So obviously there's a lot of support that the NHBF does as part of that. And I think one of the biggest things that we have going through is really, going back to you, Matthew, is about, the compliance and, what would you say on all the calls that you get through from the members is one of the biggest things? I bet we've already covered it already, but I think...
So of course, yes, as it says, the transition to how do I move to a more hybrid model. I think the costs that have been introduced to businesses certainly over the last 6 months, with the increase to employers' national insurance, the rise of national minimum wage, have got people thinking, right, how do I try and move a little bit of the burden from me onto the people carrying out the work, which they think, let's maybe go self-employed. But also we get numerous calls about apprenticeships. How do we handle apprenticeships? Performance concerns, whether it's discipline, grievance, absences, all these things that on a day-to-day basis you might think, well, okay, we can handle that, but each one has a very different process. And sometimes, depending on the nature of these issues, you would handle them in a slightly different way. At the moment, thankfully, we, from an employer's perspective, we do still, the Employment Rights Bill hasn't been passed yet, so we do have a little bit more flexibility, and maybe until October 2026 we have a bit more flexibility to deal with things in a more commercial basis before that changes and the unfair dismissal rights become on day one. So we will, at this moment, can deal with things a bit more commercially. But for us, it's always being able to, when we get a call, when a member phones up, we can ask the right questions, we can find out the specifics of that case, and then advise people on that process. But I think the key thing for us is always discipline, grievance, absence, apprentices, and redundancies. Unfortunately, it is a difficult time for businesses at the moment. We're going to have to try and do more with less, and just try to streamline those. But to make sure you're compliant, get the right support you need, get the right documents, get the right contracts in place, and just have that peace of mind that you can go and run your business, but knowing that you've got that support network at the end of the phone to always get that advice you need.
I think we can possibly say it's a really quite tough time for business at the moment, and things are changing. So you've got things that impact businesses. So you've got the change in national minimum wage, you've got all the national insurance hikes and all the stuff that was, put in the autumn budget. But then you've got all the employment issues that are. And I think one of the things that we ensure that we actually do all the time is make sure that all our resources are updated. As soon as there's a change, all of our resources, all the contracts, all the stuff are all updated continually as part of that. And that's, part of his team. And Joe is in our quality and standards team and is very much on the forefront of beauty and aesthetic side of things. And when it comes to like the legislation thing, it's making sure that we've got the latest information for our members, to go there. But we don't just work just on the shop floor. We actually work in policy as well. So we work with the ministers, we work with government departments to make sure that we have got the latest information. Joe, in particular, you've been working on the apprenticeship, haven't you? If you want to tell people a little bit about that.
Part of the steering group that has written the Level 5 apprenticeship standard, which has been fully approved by the Department of Education, and also the EPA has also been agreed, but we're just now waiting for the funding to be agreed. So once that's all sorted, that'll be obviously another option for businesses to use to get their staff trained up for Level 4 and Level 5 aesthetic procedures, and again that will be sort of in line with any possible regulation that's forthcoming as well. So that's been a really exciting time, and I think it's a breakthrough really for the industry that we get this qualification up and running, again because it's going to really help with that sort of level playing field within the industry and clarity in regards to standardising qualifications.
And I think that's one of the things that we do. So we work at the cutting edge, which is the development side of things, but that's then transferred onto actually contracts for our members, so that we do apprenticeship contracts to make sure that apprenticeship is actually fully working with Worknest to make sure that it's all compliant and it's all part of that. And that's part of the, some of the service that we do to make sure that when there's a new apprenticeship comes out, that we have actually got all the tools and resources available for members moving forward. So Kirsty, you are an NHBF member. What does it mean to you to be an NHBF member?
So what I found quite useful about the NHBF is I am from a marginalised group, as you can see. One of the things that we do find quite difficult, not all the time, but sometimes, is that social capital. Having social capital, people that are like you, that are in the same sector as you, that you can get support off. Being able to go to some of the events and meet other members as well, that helps with that social capital. It helps with feeling that sense of belonging, the support that you get from the compliance side of things, be it the HR side of things or the health and safety. That assists with some of those barriers that we experience when we're setting up our businesses or when we're running with our businesses. That is exceptionally helpful for myself.
Great, thank you. And there is, as I said before, there's so many benefits to members. One of my questions my team's put down there on the thing is, what is one of the most common misconceptions about being an NHBF member? The biggest one I get is the price. People think it's absolutely extortionately expensive to become an NHBF member. It isn't. It's £298 a year for the year. And you get all the resource, all the support, and all the things just for that. And if you work that out on a daily basis, it's under £1 a day. It's did you have the full?
I thought it was 75p a day.
75p. There you go. As part of that. So yeah, as I say, if you want to learn more, please come to our stand, and we'll be able to give you a lot more information. Particularly speaking to Matthew, because. Yeah. Guru of all our advice, we always go to our work nest friends when it comes to all that side of things, because when you're in business, it pays to have the right advice. Absolutely, as part of that. So for me, I obviously promote the organisation. What we do, we always champion our sector. We're always fighting to support businesses out there. But I'm going to put you guys on the spot now. So I want one piece of advice from each of you guys that you would give to somebody who's either setting up in business or just starting in business. So who would like to go first?
Yeah, you can go.
Yeah? Kirsty?
Well, I suppose if you're setting up in business is to do the research in terms of your location of where you're going to have your business, check out sort of your demographic, so that you can understand what you're offering, your sort of surrounding clientele. And also a key is getting the right staff as well. And I think by having resources that enable you to do that with ease, where you've got all the protocols and all the sort of the information with hiring staff and HR and so forth, that will sort of put you in a very good position to have sort of a smooth transition into a business. But I think it's making sure that you understand your what you're offering and where your business is, and then you can be an expert in that particular treatment or procedure or hair service or whatever that is. Matthew?
Yeah, no. So I would say, I can only speak from an employment law and HR perspective, but it is to be able to get the foundations right. If you become an NHBF member on day one, you get all the HR and employment law advice you need from day one, so we can help with contracts and handbooks, getting them in place, all your policies and procedures from an employment law perspective in place. We can advise you on hiring, getting your onboarding, any recruitment practices, just to make sure that you're legally compliant from a recruitment perspective, because people can claim discrimination from day one. So you've got to make sure that your employment practices are in line with that legislation. So even before you've opened the doors of your business, you know that you've got the foundations there, you've got the right people, you know that you're going to be able to be compliant. So when you open the doors and start welcoming customers, you've got a very solid business, and you're not doing it 6 months later and then finding out that you could have done that thing on day one. So I would say before you open the doors, you're starting a business, join the NHBF, get advice from the advice line, and get all your documentation and your policies and procedures up and running before you open the doors.
So my advice would be, I'm currently doing my PhD in minority entrepreneurs. So looking at some of the difficulties that individuals predominantly from minority backgrounds have. And one of the big difficulties that we have is wanting to perfect things. We want everything perfect before we even start. And that can be a bit of a barrier at times. So the other thing as well is about that social capital piece. We do sometimes within our own communities, we're quite minimised by way of social capital, which means that we're minimised by way of resources, human resources, being able to get people to come in and assist with our business model. So see the NHBF as part of your team. See that help and support that you can get from the HR perspective, from the health and safety perspective. See that as an additional member of your team and lean into that. And then the other piece is, don't be afraid to fail. Failure's a big thing for us. We don't like failing, but failure is a learning curve, and if you can learn from that failure, have the support from a membership organisation like the NHBF, and then pick yourself back up. That's my piece of advice.
Can I just make one more point in line with that, which is, and this is what I think what really is a real benefit, is that us at WorkNest working with you at the advice line, we're not just a call centre.
No.
We are named people, and we do find we can build really good relationships with your members. We get to know them on a first name basis. We can talk through the processes and we can really get to know them, and we do become that part of your team. And I love that, working with people over a number of years and really getting to know them, seeing their businesses grow and develop, and you do just become that extension of the business and become a real partner. And I think it really benefits people.
And we always say with our members are part of our family. That's what we call our members. We as an organisation have been around for 84 years. Actually, we've been around a little bit longer, because I've been doing recognition visits with some of our members who have been with us over 90 years, some of them as part of that. And they were actually members of the NHF, which was our former organisation before it actually was formally established, which is really good. But what we get to see is we have members that have been with us such a long time, and we've had members that are obviously new members as part of that, and people join for various different reasons. But I've been fortunate to speak to a lot of our members, and we've got members. I've got a lady called Dora, 90-year-old, still working in a salon at 90-year-old, still loving working in a salon and being part of the NHBF family. So my advice always is going to be for anybody who's wanting to set out in business, come and talk to us. Come and talk to us. Give your advice. And if you are not at that stage of becoming an NHBF member, please have a look at some of the tools and resources. The stuff that we do, we are a non-for-profit organisation, so what we do is we invest in the industry as well. So there's a lot of lobbying, there's a lot of information, there's a lot of schools, careers information that we put out there on behalf of the sector. So please have a look at our website, come and have a look at them, and use us as what, that's what we're there for. So anyway, thank you for my panel today. That's been a really interesting discussion. So thank you very much. And thank you for listening to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.